Welcome to the Global Discussion, discussions with creatives, leaders and thinkers. My name is Simon Hodgkins, and today I'm joined by Dr. Joerg Storm. Joerg, you're very welcome to the podcast. Let's begin by asking you to maybe introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your journey and your areas of interest, and share a little bit about what you're involved in with our international audience. So over to you, Joerg.
Yeah, Simon, thanks for the invitation today. Good. As you maybe know, I'm working at Mercedes-Benz right now, since over 23 years now. I'm in charge of infrastructure at Mercedes-Benz Mobility. That's our financial organization, Mercedes-Benz. In my 23 years of Mercedes, I worked 12 years in Asia, 6 years in Tokyo, at Mercedes-Benz and in IT and Mitsubishi Fuso. I worked, my last assignment was 6 years in China in Beijing. So I still have kind of an, how you call it, repatriation shock, cultural shock, coming back from China to Germany and seeing those differences. I think this is quite interesting. So that's basically, I was worked by Siemens before Mercedes-Benz in consulting area. So that's my background. It's basically automotive, consulting, IT, and audit.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that, Joerg. And obviously, this is the global discussion. So somebody who has experienced quite a lot of international business and lived in different parts of the world, it always, I think, gives you a different perspective on life. And as you say, when you move back or you move to a different country, maybe there's a little bit of a culture shock and a little bit of adjustment. And it's great to hear you sharing that. And obviously, you work with one of the most prestigious, well-known automotive brands in the world. And you've been there and doing some amazing things in the world of IT and technology. But I want to ask you maybe a little bit slightly different to that. I want to ask you a little bit about your interest, because I read with interest and I see with interest that very recently you're the top of the leaderboard on LinkedIn for influencing. You're up there when it comes to things like the buzzwords that we're all talking about, things like ChatGPT and things like AI. And I know you have an interest in things like robotics and technology. So could you maybe tell me a little bit about that and about what you're doing with social media and, you know, the type of information that you're sharing?
Yeah, maybe I start why I do that on social media. I don't do this pretty long. I do this since maybe 2 years. I'm more active. Before I didn't use LinkedIn at all, only as a CV. But then I was in China and I saw that in China, there's so many things so different compared to Germany, Europe. Like you can drive in the train, you take a train with 350 kilometers an hour, and the seat is clean and there's no graffiti and almost on time. And you can stream a video at 350 kilometers an hour, while if you take a train in Germany, for example, maybe sometimes you cannot even use your phone for a phone call. So this is the difference. And in my phone, I used 5 years my smartphone for payment. And here people use cash. Even some taxi drivers don't accept credit cards. So that's why I thought, okay, being in China, I share what digital transformation means, how in what areas China is ahead in the digital transformation journey compared to Germany, Europe. And that's what I shared, a lot of topics about China and digital. And then because I wanted to show my colleagues and my friends in Germany, hey, there's another way to do. And I think you only see that, that there's another way if you experience this in a foreign country. Otherwise, you probably don't see. There's so many things I see which are different here, could be done better, which I never saw have seen before. So that's why I started with LinkedIn. And then suddenly I thought, maybe only posting something about China, maybe not so interesting, go a little bit into automotive, maybe some fun, some emotional topics, some leadership advice, because I'm leading also teams. So, and then suddenly my LinkedIn community, I don't know how I did, but happened, exploded, and so now I have around 400,000 followers on LinkedIn. And yeah, yesterday I saw for the first time, I didn't check this this website before. There's due to whatever reason, I'm on #1 in this global LinkedIn Tablio survey, which does not show talk about the amount of followers only, but basically the engagement of your follower group, how they interact with you, comment, like, share, reshare. And what I do recently, because it's also en vogue, ChatGPT is a fascinating topic, and this is only one application, what company from OpenAI bought by Microsoft, and if you use this, you are quite shocked. Yesterday I used it, for example, also, and this gives for me very impressive output. I never thought that something like this could happen like this. But there's ChatGPT is where all the people are talking about right now. But there are, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of other AI applications which are maybe even more crazy. Like, for example, Midjourney, where you just enter some text and you get some really astonishing pictures. But you need to enter really some specific words. It's called prompt engineering. And if you do that, I think there are a lot of possibilities. On the one hand, a lot of options will make our life, I think, a lot easier. But on the other hand, maybe also scary. I think that if you see this, you never know. It always looks like you're talking to a person, and the output you get, but pretty advanced. And at the moment, everything we see is just at the beginning. So if you extrapolate this into the future, give them another year or two, and then I will see we will have a lot of use cases we cannot even think about right now. So that's why I think my follower base, for example, LinkedIn grew quite a lot due to posting the one or the other post on AI, ChatGPT, but I think not the only topic so I'm going to talk about it. But it really all started based on 12 years being abroad in Japan and in China, and then coming back to Germany, and because I really wanted to show, hey, there is other way to do. You can do this in a different way. So I still don't give up on this to try to convince people. And I'm not saying, because every time I say something positive about China, then people say, but there are also some downsides. Yes, for sure. There are downsides also. That's not everything is good. But I think you see this in a different perspective now. Things that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, thank you, Joerg. That's fascinating. And isn't that always the case, though, that when you live and breathe a culture, and when you're there for the period of time that you are, you definitely see other sides. You look at things maybe through slightly other lenses. And of course, there are political tensions between the US and China. There's lots of conversations going on around security, platforms like TikTok, and all that's going on. But as you say, there's more than one story. There's more than one way of looking at things. And one thing for sure, like it or loathe it, the world is getting smaller. We're becoming much more multicultural, much more connected culturally, and the tools and the platforms are certainly helping do that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question as well about things like digital transformation. Now, whether this is your time in China versus, being in Germany or being elsewhere in the world, Hong Kong or Taiwan or wherever you are, is digital transformation happening rapidly from the geographies that you've got experience in? Or do you see that certain countries, certain jurisdictions, whether that's Europe versus Asia versus the US, is there a lot of catch up? Is China just so far ahead, or is that the wrong way to be looking at it?
I saw some information, some slides from IMD in Lausanne, this university, where they said, okay, the most innovative country is, I think, Switzerland was number one. There were some European countries are leading that. On the other hand, I think yesterday, I forgot the figure, but there was a figure around about, there are more or less 40 crucial technologies, and I forgot, maybe 36 out of those are led by China. Yeah, only take solar, for example. Yeah, and even for the EVs, for the batteries, I think 95% of the, not the raw material, but the chemicals for making batteries are coming from China. So they're pretty far ahead. Yeah? Face recognition, for example, digital payment. Due to the fact that they have one government who really pushes the topics and prevents, for example, also foreign competition. They are pretty good, pretty fast, and much faster than we. Example in Germany, you have, for example, the law which makes it very difficult to work together with external parties, external vendors, which limits your communication if it's not available in China. Or our very strict GDPR, data protection law in Europe, something like this in the past did not exist in China. This is now, they're starting that. And on the other hand, I think also the Chinese are not, here I said a lot of topics are seen very negative, yeah, if you give away your data. I can give you an example, yeah, if you, in a parking lot in China, if you go with your car, the camera scans your license plate when you go in, and when you go out and you get on your phone, a second later after you get out, you get a message, you now have been 1 hour in the parking lot and cost you €5. But for this, you have to give away your data of your car, your location, where you are. And probably a lot of people in Germany don't like that other people know where you are, where you have been. But I see the Chinese people, so far they accept this, and due to this, I think they are ahead. They're faster. My personal opinion, yeah, I can, what I saw so far.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Joerg. That's very interesting insight. When it comes to, I suppose, this world of AI, let's go back into AI for a minute, because you were talking there a moment ago, and you were saying, well, it's almost the beginning. You know, we're only seeing the beginnings of it. And you were mentioning as well, people obviously mention ChatGPT. We all talk about Mid-Journey, but you quite rightly point out that there are thousands of these applications out there that they're only really in their infancy. We're only really starting to figure out what we can do with all these data sets. And, you know, regulation is missing in lots of areas. Copyright and legal cases are going through as we record. But one thing that's for sure, it seems to be, and again, this is just my view, but it seems to be we're going through a very significant change in the technology with regenerative AI, with artificial intelligence. And when you combine that with other things that I know you're interested in, like robotics, when these platforms start talking to each other, or the Internet of Things and connected capabilities, it becomes very interesting, very fast. Now, there are dangers to that too. But from your perspective, from your vantage point, you must be seeing this world completely changing over a very short period of time.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, as I said, we are at the beginning of that journey. And I think there will be a lot of new applications coming, a lot of new use cases coming. And it's not AI which is bad. Yeah? It's probably the people behind which program or use this AI. Then they could do one or the other bad thing or harm other people. So I think maybe a lot of potentials in future. New jobs will be created. A lot of jobs will disappear. I saw, for example, also a chart on that, especially all these jobs where you have direct interaction with other human beings, like physiotherapist or nurse, will never be replaced by an AI. while other jobs, like for example, a lawyer, might have probably a higher risk of being replaced. So there, we think there will be a fundamental change coming. And was it yesterday? I saw that they are talking now about the fourth industrial revolution, AI. I think first was a steam machine, then electricity, computer, and now AI as a new big step. And if you don't have any stocks, maybe you should buy. Not an advice.
But do you know what? It certainly feels like it at the moment that this is the next wave. It kind of feels like that. Now, we've had other waves come and go, and we've had new technologies fizzle out as quickly as they arrive. But the outputs that people are seeing and the implications that are already being put into play by very large global players are quite astonishing when it comes to the use of AI. And it's already used extensively. And you mentioned a job earlier. You talked about a prompt engineer. And, you know, I've said on the show with a couple of other people, you know, if you'd have told me a few years ago that people would be actively employed today as prompt engineers for artificial intelligence,
really,
I wouldn't have believed you. And yet the ability, you were talking about Midjourney, for example, or the AI engine on ChatGPT, where you have to craft the prompts and you have to sort of liaise in a communicative type style. It's somewhere between a good writer and a coder, was the way somebody explained it to me. And those jobs of writing the correct prompts to coax, if that's not the wrong word, but to get the output that you want. And the people that are sort of learning this skill quickly and are able to devise the prompts that produce the best outputs, they're being snapped up by large organizations already. It's not like going to be a thing. It's already a thing, you know?
I think so. Today I read one PDF file, also on LinkedIn, someone shared. One guy showed his prompts for Midjourney. Incredible. You would never come on this idea, because the guy really said, okay, I want a person, Indian person, at a certain National Geographic scene. But then there comes, I need a Kodak Chrome film, and I need this lens and this lighting scene and all the photographic details you need to know. And then the output was really incredible.
Yeah, I know. And that in itself is becoming a skill. Like, as you're saying, as some jobs will disappear, new jobs that we haven't even thought of will be developed.
Definitely, Simon. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. Well, look, I want to change gear a little bit as well, because I like people to understand a little bit about the person that I'm speaking to as well, of all this wonderful world of AI and technology and living in China and all the rest of it. But I want to ask you about your own learning style, Joerg. And I want to ask you, are you a visual learner? Do you watch YouTube videos? Are you listening to audiobooks? Are you, just switching everything off and turning on Netflix at the end of the day? How does it work for you when it comes to your learning style? What type of information do you like to receive? How does it work?
Yeah. If you have a family, then you have to reprioritize your hobbies. So time is limited. I think it's very challenging. I read a lot, and everything. For example, when I post something on LinkedIn, that everything what I read, otherwise I would not post it. So this I read online news. From time to time, also some books. Netflix, I have, but I've never watched any movie. YouTube, no, I have not really time for this. Podcast, I always hear your podcast. Yeah, the best. I think no other podcast needed. So
very good.
So that's the current situation. I read online a lot, and some books.
Yeah.
Podcasts from time to time.
And for anybody that follows you, and if they don't, they should, because you've got your finger on the pulse of what's going on out there. And I think also because you're not just sharing things for sharing's sake. They're things that you have read and studied and understood, and you're sort of passing it on almost to say, look, this is worth your attention. This is worth your time. And I think that's why I'm not saying it's the reason, but it's one of the reasons why I think people are really attracted to what you're posting and what you're sharing.
Yeah, because you invested quite some time in that also.
Yeah.
And if I would not think this is, for example, if I post something about leadership against micromanagement, then I'm 100% behind that a micromanaging boss is maybe not the best option.
Yeah, 100%. But you're also coming at it from a perspective of leading very large multicultural teams around the world. So it's not just putting it out there for the sake of it. You've thought it, you've considered it, you've understood it, you've implemented it, and you know what works. So I think that credibility of the information helps, you know. The other thing I want to ask you as well is, throughout your career, your journey, or maybe your life, there may have been people that have inspired you, that have you've taken that inspiration from, or people that you admire, or maybe it's a particular character trait or a particular type of person. But when I ask you that question, what springs to mind, or anybody in particular that springs to mind?
I think maybe Nelson Mandela. And not that I know him, but as leading this apartheid movement. And he was, I think, the first democratically elected president in South Africa, after I don't know how many years he spent in jail, over 20 years in jail. So I think you need a lot of passion and drive, really, after such a long period of being in jail, to still do something. So,
yeah, that's great. And what about advice, just going on from that? Because you must share a lot of advice and advise people on the best course of action, whether that's technology related or not. But you've obviously received advice along the way. Is there any particular advice that stuck with you that you think is really important, that you hold on to, that you hold dear? Or is there advice that you share with others that you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah, I think you should keep on moving, although you have some setbacks. If you have a dream, work on achieving that dream and never, ever give up. And if this means that if the task is super big, then break it down in smaller tasks and work every single day on that task. Consistency is the king, and with consistency, I think I'm able to achieve my targets I wanted. I also was one or the other time where I thought, oh, maybe I cannot do that. Yeah, but if you don't give up and to work on the topics, and then you get it done. I think this is one thing, and the other one is maybe don't live in the past, because the past life is gone. You can't change this anyway, and don't regret anything you did in the past, what you have done different, because this is gone. You can't change it. The only focus on the future and the present right now, and the future, how you can do things better and improve something. Make peace of mind with yourself. Forgive yourself for mistakes you did in the past, I would say.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's great. That's great advice. I think you're dead right. Focus on the present and the future, because there's nothing we can do about the past.
But there's so many people always past oriented. Oh, you should have done this and that, but it can't change it anyway.
Yeah.
But you can do some lessons learned based on negative things in the past. Hopefully you derive some lessons learned to prevent that this happens again for future.
Yeah, and I think the other two things that you spoke about is the first important one I think you talked about is consistency, and I think all too often that's overlooked, because sometimes it's going to come easy, sometimes it's going to be hard, sometimes it's going to feel like you're climbing a mountain. But if you're consistently moving forward, I think that's a really, really, really good piece of advice when it comes to life.
Give you an example with consistency. 2 years ago, I was not saying that I'm super VIP. Yeah, no. But 2 years ago, no one knew me. Now I'm the biggest LinkedIn influencer because consistency. I did every day in the morning before I go to work. I did 15 minutes, half an hour, reading something, post something. And every evening, I do that too. Lead to the fact, 400,000 followers in 2 years. This is consistency.
That's consistent, right? You were consistently working at it. The other thing that I was going to mention is, again, something that people often overlook when things seem insurmountable. You talk about breaking things down into their component parts, or breaking them down into actionable items.
Yeah, sure.
Very important. So as you look forward now, Joerg, as you think about the next 6 to 12 months, what are you focused on? Are you going north of 400,000 followers? Have you got other areas of your life that you're looking to achieve certain goals in? Or what does the next 6 to 12 months look like for you? What are you thinking about? What's taking up your mental capacity as you look forward?
I'm a full-time employee of Mercedes-Benz. So 150% of my mental capacity I spend for my job. Because I just got a new job here in headquarters, the global head of infrastructure. So there's quite some things to do, some things to learn also, because it's a new job, new team. This is one hand, and the other hand, you're right, on this social media topic, I thought this may be something which maybe not now, but if I be consistent and could open some doors which I don't know at the moment. So this, I think, topic which maybe also goes into the area of entrepreneurship later.
Yeah, I
the
appreciate
other passion topic, teaching. I like teaching, taking classes for students. So maybe one of the other day, if one of your listeners interested, I would also like to do something in that area.
That sounds very, very good. And look, I know, given your role and your commitment, you're extremely busy. And I do appreciate you taking the time out to share some of your thoughts and advice with me today, because I know that you are in a high demand, busy, and I'm sure enjoyable environment at Mercedes-Benz.
I have a very good company. Otherwise, I would not be in here 23 years.
Yeah.
I think, you know why? Why Mercedes? Probably I got infected by the petrol virus over 40 years ago when I was a little boy. My dad had a Mercedes. So maybe this infected me at that time. So I always wanted to work at Mercedes-Benz. So that's the reason. Then I never gave up my dream to work at that company, to make my dream come true. And I think I never regret it. It's such a big company with so many possibilities. You can work in different areas, different divisions, in different countries, great bosses, great colleagues, great team, good culture. So
that's great to hear. Great to hear. And that's what makes it the global success that it is, great culture, great people, it's a major component, The last thing I want to ask you before we wrap up, Joerg, is there any area that I haven't touched on that you want to share with our audience today? And if not, or if people want to get in touch with you or reach out and connect with you, where's the best place to send people to?
Okay, we talked so much now about LinkedIn. You find me on LinkedIn, Joerg Storm, easily. Add me there, write me there. I would be happy to get in touch with you. And best advice, I said it before, maybe I say again, never give up. If you have a dream, work on it, work on that dream. You only need some kind of an initial ignition to start. But once you start the engine, consistency and get it done.
Well, that's a great note to end this discussion on today. So thank you to Dr. Joerg Storm for joining me today here on the Global Discussion. Thank you to our audience around the world for watching or listening to this episode. Make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, do everything I need you to do to help support this podcast. And I hope you'll join me back here for more discussions with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. So thank you, Joerg. It's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you today.
Thanks, Simon.